You can define what you're looking for. Okay, so here's a senior product marketing manager. So again, whatever's going to be relevant for you, okay? So that's one way to search inside. Another really interesting thing, let's just use, I'm going to search on these guys the other day. So if you're doing research on a company, or you come across a specific person, I'll show you.
These are cool features. What's the net? What are we left with at the end?
Email address.
Okay, so what's that look like?
So yeah, perfect. So anyway, you get the idea. You can also, if you know, one thing I wanted to show you, but we don't have time for that, doesn't matter. So what that leaves you, if you go back here, dang it. What it leaves you is you start building a list of prospects, and then what you can do is you can export them. If you have Salesforce, you can export them directly to Salesforce. You can download this CSV file. So again, it's up to you. This is the bulk. This is going to push everything into your Salesforce automatically. And you could also, you can customize this to whatever Salesforce fields that you want. You can kind of map it out for yourself. So inside of Sales Lab, you can define that, so that way it matches everything you have in Salesforce in terms of how you import your contacts or leads. So again, just really fast and quick way to do that. One more time? Yes. Yeah.
It comes up with some assumptions, so it'll tell you the probability of this email.
Sorry, what was the question?
If it would give you an email format for the individual or the prospect, even if you're not connected. So it actually doesn't pull it from LinkedIn. It gives you some assumptions around. They store a lot of data, so they're like, well, this is probably like this format. So to the gentleman in the back's question, what is the net here? The net is that you're absolutely creating a list of prospects to now go after, which Steli's going to talk about here in a second. Right? So now cold emailing them, you have that list that now you work around, right? And you're focused, and you're not trying to just randomly call on people, right? You need to organize what that looks like. Does that make sense? So just to wrap up, creating your list is super important. Being able to organize that, whether you create a spreadsheet, use tools like this to create those spreadsheets or import them directly into your CRM, that's what we believe is the first step, right? You got to figure out who those customers are. And these are activities that inside salespeople, SDRs, the roles that I mentioned earlier, are very much focused on. Cool? Well, thank you so much. If you have any questions, my name is Jorge Soto or George Soto. It's JORGE at salesforstartups.org. Cool. Thank you. So next is Steli Efti. Hey, Steli.
Hey, George.
So Steli is the founder and CEO at Elastic Sales, who are actually the creators of a CRM system called Close.io. or Closio. He is also a Y Combinator founder, so participated in that program. He's going to cover a couple ideas or concepts or strategies around cold emailing and hiring.
Cold calling, cold emailing, if we get to
Hiring, got it. Because I messed up and took too long.
yeah. Let's just switch it up. Okay, while we're doing this, just to get a sense for you guys, who here is in sales right now? Actually doing sales. All right, cool. And then who of you guys is a founder or CEO at that company? Founder heavy crowd. Awesome. All right, let's see how fast it's going to work. So, there you go. There you go. Perfect. All right, so let me return the favor and tell you a little bit about myself. So give you some context on why I care about sales, inside sales, and why I want to talk about the exciting topic of cold emailing and cold calling today. So I started a company called Elastic Sales. And what we did with Elastic, what the concept was to offer startups and technology companies, specifically companies that are focused on B2B, a sales team on demand. So think AWS for sales, right? And by now, we've worked with over 150 venture-backed startups in the Bay Area alone, and we've helped them through the sales, discovery phase, exploring different sales models, figuring out what works and what doesn't work, all the way to the scaling of sales, either in the top of the funnel or the end of the funnel. While we were doing that, we developed a little software we called our secret sauce called Close.io, Close.io. That was a piece of software that we built for our own needs. We didn't like the sales software that was available out there, so we thought we'd just build something that was better. And to be honest, at the beginning, we really didn't know what we were doing. So it took us a while to really actually, by running all these different campaigns, being in this very unique position of doing sales for tons and tons of different companies, and with different sales cycles, different audiences, different verticals, we started slowly creating a real clear vision of what we believed was kind of the future of sales software. And that's what Close.io really turned into. We never intended to launch that. We thought that was our cool secret sauce, the thing that we showed people when we wanted to hire them that thought, wow, this is awesome. And the thing that made our salespeople really happy and productive. And then slowly but surely, there was more and more outside demand for the software. So, friends of our salespeople and our customers, everybody started asking if they could get the software. And I, as kind of a focused founder, always was saying, no, we're not going to do this. Let's focus on one thing. Let's not go all directions. But based on the outside demand, slowly and surely there was an inside group in the company that started lobbying for releasing the software and unleashing the software to the world. So those two things grew and grew, and eventually I gave up. And we launched Close.io in January last year. And as a founder, you're almost always wrong. Almost always, right? But once in a while, really rarely, you're glad you're wrong. And Close.io is one of those cases. I knew that it would be a huge success. I just thought it would take us 3-4 years to catch up with the revenue that Elastic was making. And we did that in 11 months. So software has been a lot more successful than I would have thought. This kind of a competitive market. People really love it. All right, so let's now talk about the most exciting thing in inside sales, cold calling 101, right? That's kind of like an uncomfortable, thank you. One person at least is excited. All right, so this is kind of something that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. It's a really challenging thing to do well, and it's even more challenging to do it well and feel good about yourself, in your company. So to ease us into the topic, I thought I'd start with baby pictures. And now, now that I have kids, I'm gonna start with my babies. So this is our oldest one. We launched him almost 2 years ago. And in March 11th, so just a few weeks, we launched a second project. So this is the second baby boy here. So all right, cold calling. So there's a couple of, cold calling is simple in its form, right? And there's a couple of things you guys have to keep in mind when you do cold calling, when you want to do it successfully. But just because it's simple, it surely isn't easy. All right, so we'll go step by step and go through these concepts one by one. So the first step is you have to reach people, right? Now, again, that doesn't sound like a mind-blowing concept, duh. But then again, when you talk to founders, and I talk to founders every week, about 30 to 40 founders book sales office hours with me and ask, about sales strategies and how to scale sales and how to fix their problems. And when I talk to these people, and they talk to me about cold calling, they usually start with, well, here's the math that I have in my mind. So we're going to be calling 100 people, and we should be converting, let's say, worst case, 10%. So 10 of these people will buy. So if one rep does 100 calls a day, we should be golden, right? All right, I see a few smiles. I assume those are the people that have done cold calls before in their life. So this math doesn't work because your typical reach rate will be between 10 and 15%. So you call 100 people, you even talk to just 10 people. It's impossible to close 10, right? And now, there's differences depending on the market that you're selling to, right? So if you are, let's say, if you are calling startups, for instance, which is the thing that we did when we started Elastic, and I'll show you the exact script that got us our first few customers. But when we started doing that, if you call a startup, if you actually have a phone number of a startup, somebody's going to pick up, and usually it's the founder, right? There's like 3 people in a room, and the phone rings, everybody's like, what? The phone rings. What is this? Is this your mom? No, I don't know. But they pick up, right? They're totally blindsided by that. But if you call Fortune 500 companies and you're like, let's try to cold call the VP of marketing of Coca-Cola, right? Then good luck, right? It's going to take a lot of dialing, and you're going to feel like you're not getting anywhere. So depends on if you're calling like local businesses, SMBs, professionals, or larger enterprise. cold calling, reach rate is going to be probably the most defining factor to your success or not. If you cannot actually reach people, cold calling will probably never make sense for your business. So you need to think about like how many people can we actually reach. So a few things to keep in mind there. One, time zones. All right. The next one is really like, I mean, it has to do a lot with lead generation, being sure that your data is right, but it also has a lot to do with are the people that I'm calling the type of people that will actually pick up the phone, right? Or am I only going to get voicemails? And kind of what are the basic market? Is that market that I'm trying to call basically ready to pick up the phone for me to even have a chance? Once you actually get a conversion rate or a reach rate that's actually okay, you know, if you're between 10 and 15 and 20% and everything else in your funnel looks good, you can start optimizing these things, right? And you can start having multiple people dial and use an auto dialer or predictive dialer where a machine calls 20 numbers at a time and drops all the calls that are not picking up or going to voicemails, so your reps are constantly on calls, you know, on actually reaching a person. You can go use technology to go really pro on this, but if you start off like old school and you don't reach at least 10%, no predictive dialer, nothing else will actually fix that problem, right? And when we first started playing around with predictive dialers or auto dialers, we did it really old school. We got a couple of temps, like 5 to 6 temps around the sales rep, and these people would all dial, and when they had someone with like wireless headsets, when they got somebody, they were like, here, right? And the funny thing is like, totally different voices, but people, when you just say, hey, my name is Steli, and then the person says, yeah, what's this about? Hey, yeah, I was wondering if blah, 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 you're interested. Like every 1,000 calls, somebody would be like, you sounded different a second ago, but most people don't, right? But most people, your brain would actually say, no, this was the same voice because it makes sense for people to change voices. They give you text. Brain works that way. So you can do all kinds of optimizations, but you need to look at a baseline. If you can't reach 10, 15% when you just do 100 stupid calls yourself, you're in trouble, right? Cold calling, don't try to fix how great your pitch is, right? Reach rate.